One ESPN insider believes that the Bears are going to be making moves in about 24 hours. Let's talk about that next on the Unbearable Sports Podcast.
We're going to take the North and never give it back.
So that's a good pick. You get the corner. I got to go bold, right? I got to go bold for this.
Yeah, she's got some nice
Welcome back to the Unbearable Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Brad Barron. Make sure to like and subscribe if you want the Bears to keep Fields. If you don't, comment who you want the Bears to get down below, and also rate the show 5 stars everywhere that you get your podcast. What's going on? Happy Black Monday, but nothing's been going on. But the rumors, the news is still running hot, so that's why I wanted to put together this show so we can just kind of break that down. What's been going on? What is some of the news that you might have missed throughout this Black Monday, and when will we start hearing news about what the Bears are going to be doing in the future? Because there's a handful of stories that I can't wait to get into. Let's just get right into it. Let's start talking about one of the first rumors that really kind of popped up this morning, because this came out with Peter King's article for Football Morning in America, where he said this. So in his article, he said, the Bears at 1 should be able to get a 2022-like ransom for the pick. With so many good quarterbacks in the pool, I expect Ryan Poles to trade the pick. But it's too early to say that with certainty. So I want to read into that a little bit more, because obviously Peter King, for those that don't know him, he's very, very connected. He knows Ryan Poles. And when he says something that he expects Ryan Poles to trade the pick, but, it's too early to say with that certainty. I think that this actually shows a lot about who Ryan Poles is and also what Peter King is thinking. In my personal opinion, I think that since he knows Ryan Poles, he must know that Ryan Poles probably wants to trade the pick, probably wants to get the assets in place. And I think that the reason why it's not certain is because of the quarterbacks. He still has to look through all the different quarterbacks, the Caleb Williams, the Drake Mays. That's kind of my impression of this. If you have a different impression, and you're watching out on YouTube, let me know down in the comments what you think, because to me, I think that it kind of comes off that way with the uncertainty, but still expects the expectation that he would trade the pick, but has a little bit of that certainty is kind of lacking. I think it all goes back to the quarterbacks. But let's actually start talking about a little bit more. Rather than just Ryan Poles, we got to talk a little bit about Kevin Warren. This was something that actually came up yesterday, and I want to bring this back up today. I think it's only suiting because nothing has happened on Black Monday. Now, going back to the actual game, you might have actually missed this if you had friends over or anything like that. But there was Tracy Wolfson talked to Kevin Warren on the sidelines or before the game and said, one thing he stressed to me is the importance of stability. They have a stadium plan, a team plan, and they have a culture plan. And he's been very pleased with what he's seen in terms of the improvement of Justin Fields. Now, what does that mean? Right? Does this mean that Justin Fields is going to stay? Does this mean he's going to go? Does this mean Kevin Warren's a liar? Does this mean he's running everything back? I think that it is important to kind of hear from him. And I think that the word stability is something that actually really does stand out to me, because I feel the Justin Fields piece might have been a little bit of fluff, or, hey, we just like the way that things are looking, because he has improved, as we've said on this show. It's just to the level of, is it acceptable? And a lot of reports out there, well, it isn't really that acceptable. I think that the other piece, too, is he talked about Dick Vermeil, who Kevin Warren knew and witnessed what went down and for the greatest show on turf. He said Dick Vermeil took until year 3 to put it all together, and he sees kind of a similar situation with this Bears team. This is year 3 with Matt Eberflus. What does this mean, right? It's a lot of signs that point to Matt Eberflus potentially being back. Like he said in the quote, he's looking at the culture. He's looking at the team, and culture is a big piece, and the stability. So does that mean that Matt Eberflus is going to stay, or is he going to go? A report like that kind of points to Matt Eberflus, but yet again, this was done before the Bears got beaten by the Green Bay Packers. But let's continue and let's talk now what's going to happen. Because what actually happened down at Hallis Hall today? Because seemingly nothing happened, but they were clearing out the lockers. They were getting everything out. And it seemed actually kind of happy. Nicholas Moriano from CHGO kind of said that it seemed like people were having fun. People were celebrating. And there wasn't much to celebrate about. They just got whooped by the Packers, but it still seemed lighthearted. And the big reason was really about just the overall culture of this team and the culture of this locker room. The Bears still have that. So it's nice to see, but as a Bears fan who just really wanted to see you guys beat the Packers, I don't love hearing anything like that. But really today was the final interviews. They're kind of roundup interviews with Poles and Flus interview all the players as kind of these exit interviews. And then tonight, I'm recording this on Monday night, they're actually going to have more of the coaches' interviews. So that leads us to what's going to happen. And Courtney Cronin on ESPN 1000's Waddle and Sylvie had a very interesting piece to say about one Luke Getsy.
What do you believe they're deciding right now?
I think it starts with the offensive coordinator. I mean, to me, the way that I could see this going is that Luke Getsy will not be back, and then that ultimately will probably foreshadow what they're doing at the quarterback spot. But, this is Matt Eberflus's chance right now in these meetings. First off, they probably.
And so she talks a little bit more on that and a little bit more. And if you haven't heard the entire clip, go look up Waddle and Sylvie. She talks a lot about what's going on in the locker room. I just didn't want to copy exactly what that show was word for word. It was an incredible interview. But the big piece that you kind of get out of that, she looks at this as they're really kind of figuring out Luke Getsy. And DJ Moore said it in his kind of locker room. They asked him about everything, and he said, hey, the quarterback position is set. We feel good about the quarterback position, the wide receiver position. We just got to be in place to make plays. I don't have the exact quote right in front of me, but that was really telling. And he kind of alluded that he spoke his mind, and there was a lot of things that made you feel like Luke Getsy was something that he really did talk about, considering Luke Getsy was not in the room. I think it's going to be very telling, obviously, the next couple days. And Courtney Cronin did say, we'll know in the next 24 hours what kind of goes down. But she said it feels like Wednesday. So 24 to 48 hours where everything is going to go down. So unfortunately, we're going to have to wait a little bit longer for more news on is Getsy going to be out or is Getsy going to be in. But also a little bit later on in that interview, Courtney Cronin also talked about how she thinks that the future of Justin Fields is going to be tied to whatever direction they do go at the offensive coordinator if, in fact, Luke Getsy is out at the offensive side of the football. Because if he's not there as the offensive coordinator, then who do they bring in? Is it going to be someone who's in a similar tree? Because they probably don't want to switch up the offenses on Justin Fields unless it's someone like a Greg Roman that can kind of develop an offense around a running quarterback. So lots and lots of pieces out there. After hearing this, I thought that they were just going to run things back. But that Courtney Cronin is very well connected. Makes me feel a little bit that Luke Getsy might in fact be out. But let's continue going through some more. Just have a couple other little nuggets before we wrap things up. Let's just talk about it. Ian Cunningham got asked to be interviewed by the Washington Commanders as the actual GM. And this is actually kind of important. This actually should have been one of the more top stories because Ian Cunningham getting the GM job for the Commanders, Ryan Poles has a very small circle of trust that he tells things to. Ian Cunningham is one of those individuals. That's his assistant GM that he puts in position to help him out. And let's say that Ryan Poles, let's just say hypothetically, that Ryan Poles doesn't like any of these quarterbacks at the top, right? Because Greg Gabriel, I know, also tweeted something out that he thought it was something, I don't have the exact tweet, but it was something like he kind of knew some people from inside and it seems like he's going to trade down. And if Ian Cunningham knows, Ryan, I know that you don't like any of these quarterbacks, or I know that you love one of these quarterbacks, and he might be like, I'm not going to trade with you because we saw Caleb Williams and we didn't like him, right? I'm totally hypothesizing, but it is something that is a little bit nerve-wracking if you are trying to trade down, because right now the Commanders seem to be a really good prime partner if the Bears wanted to move on from that first pick and keep Justin or get a quarterback later on or sign a free agent quarterback as well. So if the Bears just keep the first round pick, this isn't a big deal, but it is something to at least look out for. The other piece I will mention about the Commanders is that if Ian Cunningham goes and gets a GM job, we get a third round pick compensatory this year and a third round pick next year, because it's the like hiring a person of color in a leadership position, which GM would be one of those. So the Bears would get a compensatory pick for it for the next 2 years, for this year and next year. So that'd be pretty awesome. But let's keep on going to the final piece of news before we wrap things up. Last little bit, Mercedes Lewis was interviewed in the locker room. Never really talked about retirement, so it seems like he's ready to get back at it. And this was the only person really in the locker room that had anything good to say about Luke Getsy. He kind of talked about that Luke Getsy knows how to use him, so that's the big reason why he wanted to come over. So seeing that, I think that this is the only positive piece of news that Luke Getsy got, at least of any of his current players, but kind of expected. We'll see what he ends up doing as someone who's going to turn 40 in, I think, a couple of months. But let me know down below, what do you think that the Bears are going to do? Because do you think that Luke Getsy's as good as gone? Do you think that they're going to get rid of Matt Eberflus? There's a lot of stuff that's going to be coming up the next 24 to 48 hours. You better believe that we are going to have you covered. So make sure to like, make sure to subscribe, and also live shows on Wednesdays at 7:30 live on YouTube. Also on Sunday, 7:30 live on YouTube. Make sure to like and subscribe. And with that, Unbearable Sports Podcast, we are out.
Yeah, she's got some nice long hair, and you know that she's a